Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Killer Author Club. We are so excited to be here tonight. We have another great episode. We've got not just one, but two killers with us. We've got killer sisters, Andrea and Julia Bartz, both with us, talking about their incredible novels, The Spare Room and The Writing Retreat. We have tons to talk about, so grab your cocktail, your list of questions for Andrea and Julia, and sit tight, and we will see you on the other side.
Thought you really loved me, guess I was wrong. Thought you'd never leave me, guess I was dumb. Waited like forever to be your plus one, but I guess you were done.
Hi, everyone. I'm Killer Heather Goodenkoff, along with founding members Kimberly Bell and Kara Ruda, and we are so excited to welcome Andrea and Julia to the clubhouse. The Killers and I started the Killer Author Club so that readers like you could interact with some of the best suspense and thriller writers in the biz. Killers like Megan Golden, Sherry LaPena, Frida McFadden, and the amazing and hilarious Karen Slaughter, all who will be upcoming in the Killer Author Clubhouse. Dates and times, etc., can be all found on our website, thekillerauthorclub.com. But tonight, very special night, we're here with Andrea and Julia to talk about killing, of the fictional kind, of course. So make sure to drop your questions for the Killer Sisters in the comments, and we will do our best to get through them all. And if you're watching this on Facebook or have a Facebook account, check out our public group, Killer Author Club. Or if you're a really hardcore killer, you can join our private group on Facebook called the Killer Author Clubhouse, where we host our book clubs. And next up, on August 15th, Nicole Bart and The Long Way Back is our next book club. And we will be announcing, we have a really fun giveaway for Nicole's books. We have 6 books to give away for book club. To one lucky book club, we picked the winner. We're going to announce that later in the show, so stay tuned for that. And we also have a YouTube channel. Do we have any idea how many we're up to, Kara?
Millions, I think. But still join us still.
So you can stream us to your big flat screen TV. You can find us wasting entirely too much time on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and what's the new one? Threads.
Threads.
Yeah.
We're so cool we don't even know the name.
So many. And for links to everything, watch the comments or check out our Killer Author Club website, killerauthorclub.com. So without further ado, Kara, can you introduce our killer guests?
I sure can. All right. Andrea Bartz is a Brooklyn-based journalist and the New York Times bestselling author of We Were Never Here, The Lost Night, The Herd. Her work has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Marie Claire, Vogue, Cosmo, Every Place, Women's Health, Martha Stewart Living, Redbook, Elle, and many other outlets. And she's held editorial positions at Glamour, Psychology Today, and Self, among others. Julia Bartz is the New York Times bestselling author of The Writing Retreat, a practicing therapist, and a creative coach. Her fiction writings appeared in the South Dakota Review, in Digest Magazine, and more. Julia also lives in Brooklyn, New York. All right, so Andrea, let's start with you. Can you give us the elevator pitch for The Spare Room?
Yeah, absolutely. So in The Spare Room, a down on her luck woman moves in with this enchanting couple who ends up opening up their marriage for her. And at first, she loves being a part of this sexy new world with them. But when she discovers that their last lover is actually missing, she starts to wonder if they might actually be dangerous, and worse, if she could be next. So it's sexy, it's twisty, it's very dark, and it's hopefully a lot of fun to read.
It was good.
It is. We loved it. Okay, Julia, you're up. Give us the elevator pitch for The Writing Retreat.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, just thanks for having us. So excited to be here. And it's so cool. I love seeing the pop-ups from people. So hi back to everyone. And it's great to see you. So The Writing Retreat is about a struggling writer named Alex who receives the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to attend a writing retreat put on by her favorite horror author. However, this writing retreat is not as it seems. And when one of the other attendees goes missing, Alex realizes that there's much more than just her career at stake.
Awesome. I know. That's great. Great pitches, both of you guys. Yeah, very good. Okay, we'll talk more in a minute about the books, but for now, everyone settle in for the killer cocktail of this episode, Kimberly.
Yes. So you guys together came up with the locked mansion as the cocktail. And the recipe is on our website, killerauthorclub.com, if this is too quick for you and you want to make this. But why don't you sisters tell us why you chose the locked mansion as your special cocktail?
Yeah, well, we were trying to come up with something that, applied to both of our books, and both of our books are sort of these claustrophobic, locked rooms, scary stories that take place in these really glamorous, beautiful, pretty large mansions. So that was where the name came from. And then in terms of a delicious drink, this was inspired by a paper plane. It makes this like really beautiful color. I put a nice cube sign, which is not in the recipe, but I thought, we were going to be sipping for a while. And we're both from Wisconsin, where maple syrup is something that our family like harvests and makes every year. So we both always have a very heavy, solid quantity of it in our fridge, and it's super fresh and delicious. So I think it's really fun, like instead of simple syrup, having maple syrup in a drink, and it gives it kind of that like roasty toastiness and a little bit more to it. So that was the original inspiration for it.
Yum. I love it. Well, cheers, ladies.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Congratulations. Again. And so now we're at that time. So these two books have gotten such rave reviews. So everybody just pull up a chair and listen, because this is amazing. So Shondaland called The Spare Room delightfully delicious. It was billed by people as a best new book and a fresh and sexy ride, perfect for reading poolside. The Los Angeles Times called Andrea the master of the feminist thriller. And The Writing Retreat was an instant New York Times bestseller. Now, People magazine raves sex, suspense, and the natural fuel this propulsive debut. And Publishers Weekly says an audacious psychological thriller debut. Boldly drawn characters complement Bartz's gleefully twisted plot. Woo! So many accolades for these two books. I mean, you just must be over the moon proud.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a dream to have like your book actually resonate with people and have readers seem to enjoy it, especially, with Julia being a debut.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. And so now we've come to the big question of the day. Where do you kill? Who wants to go first?
I can start. So it's so funny. I was actually talking with some other authors about this at Thriller Fest, and some of us found that we had some crossover. So I do all of my fictional killing from bed for the most part. So maybe I'm just lazy, but I love like waking up in the morning, making coffee, bringing it back to bed, and then just writing for an hour or two. And I think it's just so comfortable. I think there's something about like the liminal space between sleep and, not being fully awake. And I think that you can maybe pull things from your unconscious a little bit more easily. But I love writing in bed. Also, I find that if I put it off until later in the day, I normally get distracted and don't go back to it. So it's also really helpful for me to just do it first thing and have it done before I actually get up and go on to the rest of my day.
I'm going to try that.
Me too.
It's lovely. Lots of pillows. I recommend lots of pillows behind you.
And coffee. Otherwise, I fall right back asleep.
Exactly.
You heard it here. The key to killing in bed: lots of pillows and fresh coffee.
All you need to kill anybody.
All you need to kill anybody.
Yeah.
Got to be awake. Yeah. My answer. I mean, I think my answer in a literal sense of where I do my writing is more boring, because it's usually here in my office or sometimes on the couch. But what I thought about when you posed that question is where I most like to be killing off characters. And for me, that's always within a kind of close-knit, closed-door world. I love going into these like social milieu that are interesting and kind of exclusive. And, that has been sort of a through line throughout my books. In The Lost Night, it was like the hippest of the hipsters in circa 2009 Brooklyn at their warehouse parties. In the Herd, it was this bougie, exclusive, even as it tried to be inclusive, all female co-working space. In We Were Never Here, it's like this friendship between these two women who are just best friends and travel the world together and just see the other person as their everything. And then in The Spare Room, it's this sort of lockdown pod. It's literally within the four walls of this mansion where these three people are romantically involved, but also emotionally involved, also like cut off from the rest of the world. So I think my favorite sort of place to be killing is within a clique, some kind of like social group that is just fascinating and has its own rules and its own complicated dynamics. And I just love going deep in that and sort of seeing what happens when we like launch a dead body into that little social circle. Right?
Launch a dead body. I love that.
A lot happens.
Okay, wait. So I've got a question from the audience. Can we do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you both working other jobs still besides writing?
I am. I'll just start off. Yeah, so I am also a therapist and a creative coach, and I'm not at the stage where I can write full time. I don't have the financial backing for that. And at the same time, I think that even if I did, I would still want to continue my practices because I love working with clients. I love working, with therapy clients. It's kind of like writing. It's like making the unconscious conscious, like figuring out, how to understand yourself more deeply, see patterns that maybe you weren't aware of. And then for the creative coaching, it's a little bit more about people's relationship with their creative works. And often people running into challenges and blocks, and I love helping them through that. So, so I actually feel like it's a really nice combination of different things that I'm doing. And also, as we all know, writing can be very solitary. So I also think that it's helpful that I have like people that I speak to throughout the day, just so I'm not like alone in my apartment.
Yeah.
Great.
Good night. Yeah.
Great. Killing in your bed all by yourself. Yes.
Killing in your bed, just you and the pillow.
Yes, just you and your pillow.
That part I love. That part I'm totally happy with.
Yeah, that part you wouldn't miss. I, at this point, am primarily a full-time novelist, but I definitely did not start that way. When I wrote my first 3 books, I was also working as a freelance journalist. So I was doing editorial consulting. I was doing freelance articles. I worked as a travel writer for years, which was really just kind of shut down by the pandemic. But before that, I was doing a lot of travel writing for different magazines. And at this point, We Were Never Here, my book before this one, was when sort of the things tipped. And now I primarily do work as a novelist with just a little bit of side, writing essays, writing freelance stuff. I do still do some like one-on-one editorial coaching and consulting for people who want to talk about starting a freelance career or, getting published, stuff like that. So I'm doing a sprinkling of other stuff, but I am primarily a novelist after, now that I'm at book 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, it's obviously a writing family affair for you, for the two of you. It's rare to have one published author in the family, but you have 2. How did each of you come to writing? Have you always loved it? Has it been your path all along? Or your goal?
Yeah. Well, I think that we were always readers from a very early age, and our mom would take us to the library week to week. We would always have like a big basket of library books to go through. So I think oftentimes when people read a lot, they also have that interest in writing as well. And we started writing things together pretty early on. We had like a series, like chapter, or maybe it was a picture book. I don't remember.
We definitely drew pictures for it.
Pictures in it. It was called The Ghost Gang, and it was about this gang of like supernatural creatures who were fighting crime. We were writing like scripts together. We wrote like an X-Files spec scripts at, I don't know, 8 and 10, or maybe even younger than that. So I think there's something about like reading or even like watching, for example, watching the X-Files and wanting to emulate that and wanting to explore that. And so, yeah, I think from the very beginning, we both had that interest.
Yeah. So from the time we were little, we were both really interested in writing. And then I think our paths kind of diverged as we got a little older. I discovered magazine journalism in college and absolutely loved it. And so I had a career for a while working at different magazines, as you mentioned in my bio, and kind of got away from the fiction stuff and then kept getting laid off because magazines kept folding as I worked there. And so decided in one of those periods in between jobs to really focus on finishing, actually writing that story that had been kind of kicking around my head. And so that was the point where I really dove in and focused and wrote the first draft of what eventually would become The Lost Night. So I sort of moved away from fiction writing and then sort of swung back into it. Whereas Julia, actually, you like studied creative writing in college and wrote some literary fiction before kind of moving over to thrillers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I always thought that my I don't know, the biggest part of my identity was always being a writer. Like that was the first thing that I would tell people, like trying to impress people, I think, when meeting them. And I studied writing in college. I got to take a class with Lori Moore. That was amazing. I did a thesis that was like a book of short stories. And then afterwards, I wrote a couple of books that did not get published. And I wrote 2 novels. And the first one, I wasn't able to get representation. The second one, I did get an agent and we worked together for a while. And then ultimately parted ways. And at the time, that wasn't like my choice. So at the time, that was pretty difficult. I hear from a lot of people that they've also gone through something similar.
It's a tough business. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. But I think feeling like you're back at square one can be really difficult because agents are the gatekeepers, at least to traditional publishing. So that was the point when I really was questioning my life ultimately. And I was working at a job that I didn't love. And again, my goal had always been to get published and be a writer. And at that stage, I was thinking of like, don't know if I can keep doing this. And that was a point when I actually decided to switch careers into being a therapist. And actually in the midst of that career change was when I had the idea for the writing retreats and almost didn't write it, but decided that I was going to use it to explore, some of these difficulties of being a writer and frustrations and even feelings of being a failure. And also just to write the most like suspenseful, disturbing, dark book that I possibly could just for my own amusement. And ironically, that's the one that got published.
I love it. Okay, so I have a question. Are there any more siblings? No. Okay. No one else. No other Bartz that we're waiting for their next their debut novel.
Okay, and I have a question. Oops, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, and this one's one from the viewers.
Okay.
Would you ever think of co-writing a thriller? I know you've co-written some other things in the past, but is that something you guys have talked about?
We could resurrect that ghost gang. It's funny because we actually have the same agent who is wonderful. And anytime somebody asks us this, like in front of other people, she's in the front row being like, nope, not right now. Like right now, you two are going to work on your own careers, which I totally see too. And, our styles are overlapping, but our timing is different. We have, different sort of ways to approach plot and stuff. But at the same time, we're such natural collaborators. We've been co-writing since we were little. I don't know. What do you think, Julia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely think that would be fun. We've even kicked around the idea of maybe writing like a middle grade novel together, since there's certain books that we can think back to that during that time that were just so like life-changing and inspiring.
Yeah.
So that could be really fun.
Yeah. So maybe we'll push it. We'll switch genres to do it. We'll see.
What are some of those life-changing books that you grew up with?
Oh God. I mean, I immediately think of A Wrinkle in Time. Like that
whole series.
The whole series was just like so beautifully written, so philosophical and just like they're not really children's books. They're really adult, any age could read those.
Yeah.
I know
but we both really loved that series. We both loved The Last Unicorn and Never Ending Story and The Chronicles of Narnia and the house. What was it? The House with the Clock in the Walls. We were like having fun one night, just coming up with the names of all of them and like, oh my God, I remember that cover, and Googling it together. There was just a ton that were in that wicker basket, always full of books from the library that we both really loved.
Right. Here's the question I have, because I had a brief 2-year stint in writing romance novels, but before I realized that I can't write romance like that. Okay. So anyway, but you guys both have like kind of steamy, intimate scenes. Are those easy for you to write, or does that just come naturally?
Just Karen's blushing as she asked the question.
I do, because I had like, okay, never mind. Not about me. I can't do it.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you, where I my first 3 books were very much about like friendship. They were about totally platonic relationships between women. And this was the first time that I pitched something that had romance in it. And I think I was just like kind of enamored of the idea, and I was excited to be like exploring this relationship, and like, oh, there's so much like great possibility for, psychological whatever within this triad, this throuple. And then I actually sat down to write it. I was like, oh my God, now I need to write people falling in love and then having sex. And it's not even just 2 people, it's 3. What have I done? And it was so hard. And I always had respect for romance writers. But after this, like, I have so much respect for romance. It is so hard to just realistically show people, yes, like it's this blend of like flirting and interiority, and their hands brush and physical things happen. And I thought it was really hard. It took a lot of drafts for me to get right, I think. Yeah. And it was hard to sort of get it right of like, okay, no, too far. Okay, pull back. Okay, now you're too far pulled back. How explicit are we even supposed to be? So yeah, for me, it was hard. I am very curious to hear Julia's answer on this.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't that hard. And I actually was thinking about why just now. And I think it's because as a therapist, like you talk about such intimate things with people so quickly, often during the intake session, especially if you're seeing, like I see couples as well as individuals. So we're talking about their sex life, pretty quickly. They're telling me intimate details, and individual, therapy clients do that as well. So I think I'm just used to talking about sex, especially like sexual issues, just through my line of work. And it's funny though, because I do think that romance would be hard. Like I also have so much respect for people who write romance. I don't think that I could do it, but I think like sex and thrillers is a little bit different. Because often it's more about like power dynamics, or like what's happening between the characters, or what you're learning about the characters in those like types of settings, because I think we can learn a lot about people through their sexual selves. So yeah, but maybe I'm just like not thinking about it too much. Like, okay, moving on.
No, they were both so good, so steamy, so dark, so thrilling. But Andy, this question's for you. You said in an interview about the pandemic that the empty streets and quiet dread reminded you of a Hitchcock film, which I love. And I have my own little Hitchcock story that happened to me the other day, but that I'll save for another time too. And then, but you said the media messaging echoed some of your favorite horror films. Can you tell us more about that in your, as you wrote?
Yeah, there was something about those early days of the lockdown, especially, at the beginning, we were all just like, what is even going on? But once we started to sort of wake up to the fact that like, this is not ending anytime soon, this isn't going to be a 2-week thing like we all originally thought, that at least for me, I was alone in my studio apartment in Brooklyn with my cat, and I had so much time with my thoughts, and I was staring at the same 4 walls. I definitely had a rear window set up where I had these big windows looking at a courtyard, and I became like a little bit obsessed with the people across the way. And the only time I saw them, we religiously got outside at 6 p.m. and everyone either clapped or banged on a pot. Remember that? And I would see them and I'd be like, where's the guy? It's only the girl today. It's usually a couple out there. And I just had all these sort of ideas about them. So I guess in a very literal sense, I was thinking about Rear Window. But even more so, there was something about the fact that like stranger danger was so real that if you were walking down the street you saw somebody coming, you switched to the sidewalk on the other street. I mean, literally anybody could kill you. And that was so creepy. And it was so universal. It wasn't, like my other books have sort of dealt with like women's safety and how women have to take extra precautions and men don't realize how scary they are to women. This was like, nobody is immune from this. Like healthy people are getting sick. This tragedy is sort of infringing on all of our lives in different ways. And it was just like this fear economy. We were all just like stewing in this fear all day and like going in and out of like more severe levels of it. And yet it was like boring and it was quiet. And like, that sort of Hitchcock idea of, suspense is when you see the bombs be set under the table and then you watch a whole scene of people sitting at the table not knowing it's there. Like it just had that feeling of like, it's so mundane and everything that we're doing is just like trying to go to the grocery store. And yet there's this huge, scary undercurrent of like, I could breathe in wrong at the wrong moment and like it could end my life. Like what could be more suspenseful than that? And so it definitely applied to this book because, Pods created these sort of natural locked room mysteries, these sort of closed door situations. And we all kind of cinched in the drawstrings of our lives and our social lives. And like our pod was our entire world. I went and stayed with friends, with a family, and there was nothing nefarious and there was nothing romantic. There was no missing people nor sex with these people. But I thought it was interesting how just incredibly intimate it was I ended up living with them for 4.5 months. And for 4.5 months, like our entire world was in those 4 walls. So everything, it's like this crucible. It's like this bell jar where like everything is so amplified. And if somebody says something that takes you off, like in normal life, you would just move on and go see someone else. But instead, we're stewing in these feelings and this tension. And when will this end? So I don't know. I think I'm babbling a little bit. But in short, I just thought there was so much rich fodder to create a backdrop that sort of holds everyone's feet to the fire in the setting of a domestic suspense, of a thriller that isn't about the pandemic. It's not a pandemic thriller, but sort of using that to kind of like turn the heat up on everyone and like make everything more intense because we were all experiencing that intensity every day.
Right. And you did it so well.
Thank you.
Well. Yes. And Julia, quick final question for you too. You said you wrote this book as an exercise to explore like the dark corners of your own psyche. What did you learn?
Tell us.
Yeah. And Heather, I also want to hear your Hitchcock story at some point.
We'll do that on the after show.
Okay. What did I learn? Well, the thing that I realized during the course of writing this book and during the course of doing all this training to become a therapist is that the things that we feel shame about are typically not necessarily personal to us, but they're things that actually a lot of people feel. And oftentimes they're indications of like larger societal issues. And so when I was really grappling with this idea of being a quote unquote failure because I hadn't been published, it struck me that, this field is difficult. And I think that especially for newer writers, there's not always like real talk about it. And in some areas, like there's kind of this like Instagrammy, like, shoot for the stars and just go after your dreams. Nothing else matters and do whatever you have to do to make your art, which I think is great. And I think people should make their art. And at the same time, if all of your identity and where you find your validation is in this one thing that you can't control, like you really can't control when you'll be published, when and if, although I think if most people keep going with it, at some point it does happen. Then there's the opportunity for shame, depression, just some really painful effects. And so, when writing this book and really trying to use the writing process itself to find, fun, joy, inspiration, exploration, like really focusing on that rather than the outcome was really helpful for me. And I think led to a better book too.
Well, thank you both. Incredible books, incredible. And we're so excited that Kara has something special to talk about.
So you guys, yes.
Yes.
So these guys are giving away, Andrea's giving away 2 copies of The Spare Room, and Julia's giving away 2 copies of The Writing Retreat. So that's 4 chances to win. And all you have to do is answer these questions about our guests, and we'll pick from the correct answer. Bonus points for joining the Killer Author Clubhouse Facebook group. That's our private group on Facebook. And subscribing to our YouTube channel with the millions of other people who are already there. Okay, so the question is, which sister is a journalist and has worked as an editor, and which sister is a therapist and coach? You guys know this already. Okay.
All right.
Kimberly.
Oh, it's me. It's me. I'm up. So let me get my script. So the Killer Author Club, as you know, we love our independent bookstores and we appreciate your support of them. Andrea has selected Terrace Books on Prospect Park. West is her favorite indie, and Julia selected Greenlight Bookstore in Brooklyn. Why don't you both tell us why you love these bookstores?
Sure. So Terrace Books is my neighborhood one. It's the closest one, and I'm so lucky to have such a just friendly and well-stocked and wonderful indie near me. It's really small, but what's great about them, and this is something everyone should know, is that they will order for you whatever you want. So whenever it's time for me to get a new book or I hear about something I need, I do not go to the Zon. I know Prime Day is happening. I go to their website, I request it. I don't have to pay for shipping or anything because I just order it through the site, and then they send me an email or give me a call when it's in, which is something that every indie bookstore will do for you. So yeah, they're just like great people with a really great selection and a lot of local authors, and I love them.
Julia.
So Greenlight, also an amazing bookstore, indie, female-owned. They also can order you, whatever you would like. And they hosted my launch event, so I will always, think of them for that.
That's always a special relationship, right? You'll never forget that.
Totally.
So I just dropped the link in the comments so you can order The Spare Room and The Writing Retreat and any other books on your to be read list from these 2 fabulous indies.
All right. And here we go with our next segment. We love serial killers, right, of the fictional varieties, but we have 2 very special Killer Author Club alumni to talk about. Megan Collins had a book out today, Thicker Than Water. 2 sister-in-laws are at painful odds when the man who connects them, the brother of one, the husband of the other, is accused of a brutal crime. Congratulations, Megan. And Megan is giving a 1-book giveaway. So we will pick from one lucky winner from the comments for that. And we also want to congratulate alumni May Cobb. Her Likeable Woman, which came out today, was a most anticipated thriller of summer 2023 by Oprah Daily, BuzzFeed, She Reads, BookBub, Pure Wow, Crime Reads, and more. All right. So in her book, Kira's back in her affluent hometown for the first time in years and determined to unravel the secrets of her mother's death, hidden in the unpublished memoir she left behind, even if it kills her. Congratulations to May. And we're not done yet. We have a Killer Author Club Celebrate. So as much as we love to invite every amazing killer author on our show, we have to eat, sleep, write, so we can't feature everybody. But we don't want to let this night go by without talking about a very special release, Her Too by Bonnie Kistler. and we're celebrating her book. Defending an accused rapist, a high-powered lawyer learns firsthand the terrible truth about her client, a discovery that propels her on a quest for revenge. And the author and the publisher are going to give away one book. And so, but you have to come over to the Killer Author Clubhouse to win this one. So look for that giveaway there. So, phew, lots of giveaways.
Lots of stuff.
Sweating now.
Lots of fun books. All right. So, membership has its privileges, y'all. Heather just mentioned one book giveaway that's happening in the clubhouse. But if you join over there in the Killer Author Clubhouse, which is the private group, every episode we choose a name from the hat to win a piece of swag. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have candles, we have totes, all sorts of fun stuff at killerauthorclub.com. And tonight's winner is Sharon Carlson Person. Please send one of the killers your address and we will send some swag your way.
Right. And before we close up, though, we do want to announce our book club winner of 6 copies of Nicole Bartz, The Long Way Back. And so, as you know, we did a shout out for book clubs from all over the United States and even the world. We're excited to win 6 copies of Nicole's book. And the winner is Just for the Thrill of It Book Club. And thanks to the group rep, Jen Massey. And so she and her group will win 6 copies of the book, and they'll be right back here with us on August 15th for that chat.
Exciting.
There's just a lot going on around here. But for now, we want to thank you two for being here. So we have our special prize that we give people who've made it all the way through the Killer Author Club, and you have survived. So we're very, very happy. You get your own badge. And you guys can put it on your bookshelves. You can put it, in your bed next to you while you're writing, any place you want to put it. But anyway, we really appreciate both for being here, and thank you so much for your time and for your amazing books. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having both of us. Yeah, this is super fun.
Okay, good. Yeah, and it's funny, you guys, because the book community is so fabulous, and we talk about killing, but we really do all really like each other, and we're so happy that all of you guys have showed up to ask questions and participate. So thank you all for being here. All right, so here's our next victim. All right, that does it for tonight's episode. Thank you again for tuning in. We are back in just 1 week because we wouldn't want to do every other week. Nope. Every week in July, we're going to be back. So July 18th with a fabulous show right here at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific with the one and only Megan Golden, author of Dark Corners and Book of the Month Club Pick. And lots more fabulous killers planned for this summer and into the fall. So I'm sure to pick up Nicole Bartz's book, The Long Way Home, for the August Book Club. And we'll see you right back here, the same time, same place, next week. So thank you all for being here, and have a good night.
I guess I'm a killer through